Good morning. This is the Innovation Conversation. I'm Kevin Coupe.
And I'm Tom Furphy.
So, Tom, there was a piece in CNBC the other day that talked about the e-commerce live streaming market, and they were predicting that while it is still in its infancy, it is expected to eclipse $25 billion in sales all by itself, just that corner, by 2023, which is only 2 years away. And that's Coresight Research came up with that. And I mean, that's a lot of money. But at the same time, I mean, that research was released as Nordstrom announced that they were going to do their own live streaming They're calling it Livestream Shopping channel. So I know what streaming is. How is live streaming different than that? Why does this matter in terms of retail?
Well, I think why it matters, and 25 billion, that in itself is from nothing or near nothing is, very nice growth. Um, it's a small part of retail in total. If you compare it to something like QVC, right? That is, I mean, that's live streaming. It's live TV, but it's effectively live streaming where you can shop and it's a commerce is happening in that broadcast. And of course, QVC alone is way bigger than that 25 billion. But I think it makes a lot of sense. We've talked about using TV, using video to sell, and even in some cases embedding, the ability to buy from those videos within it. This is not quite that. I spent some time on the Nordstrom site. It's pretty cool. You have themed, you have events, you have things you want to be there for live, so there'll be like a happy hour where they're talking about a certain style trend. And maybe they'll also then go, cut over to a bartender that's teaching you how to make a drink. And, there's just some theater in that, as you shop more in e-commerce, certainly during these COVID days, right, you don't get as much opportunity for theater. So I think it's really engaging. It's pretty cool. And then, the shopping happens kind of around the screen. So there's, opportunities to kind of drill around the site from there. And then, after the event is done, the content stays, right? So the content goes and sits out there, and it's a nice merchandising asset for the retailer to use, from that point forward.
To what degree is it interactive? Are people who are watching it able to interact with the people who are doing the streaming?
That's a great question. I in the ones I saw, I didn't see a lot of audience interaction, but I'm sure you can do that. We did the formats that they were capturing it in weren't such that it was capturing any interaction, right? In a lot of live streams, you'll have the live streaming, you'll have the content, the comments and stuff running alongside. That would be cool. Although a lot of that stuff may not be editable, so maybe that's a little bit tough, because if it's content that's going to stick around, you certainly want to make sure that it's good, solid content, not controversial, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think the more you could foster actual participation, even moderated, would be even better.
Well, yeah, I mean, curation of comments is really important. I even find that when I facilitate online webinars and stuff like that, sometimes the client will say, "Oh yeah, we'll just run all the questions and we'll deal with them that way." And I say, "No, don't do that, because you don't."
Get right off topic. Yeah.
Let's figure out another technique to get me their questions so I can sort of curate them and make sure they work. So that would, I mean, to me, would make a lot of sense. And it also allows the retailer in this case, who's trying to sell stuff, to be able to organize them in a way that's going to drive their message the way they want to get it driven.
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah, organize it that way, and then when the content sticks around, you can leverage that content, the video content, in the organized kind of chat or Q&A content in a way that you can market to that, right? So you can mine information that's in there, use that data for targeting purposes, for search, to create traffic to the products that you want to create traffic to. These are great assets for that.
How is it? I'm unclear. Is it just a matter of platform, how it's different than what's being called T-commerce? Because T-commerce being, television commerce, which we talked about on Morning News Beat, I guess about a week or so ago, which is the ability to watch television and then buy things that you see. Ooh, I like that sweater that Chandler's wearing on Friends. I want to buy it, kind of thing.
Yeah, a little bit different. In that T-commerce, well, yes, it's a different platform because it's a broadcast medium. Now you
Right.
might be getting it streaming, you might be getting it through satellite, but it's a broadcast medium that has some ability to capture, either click on or with your remote, right? Say yes, that is something that I want. That stuff is kind of embedded in the content. From what I've seen from the Nordstrom instance of this, is there's a live stream, but all the shoppability kind of surrounds it. It's not within it, right? So you can't like click on the screen. Like if I see a Burberry scarf on the screen that I like, you don't click on the screen to get it, but that scarf, or at least the route to that scarf, is there, kind of in the experience.
But touching the screen, especially if if it's obviously it's a touchable screen, that would seem to be the almost inevitable next generation of this.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure you could, ultimately that would not be, I can't imagine that would be that much of a stretch to build into that. But I'll say the experience is really, was really good. Like you can bring in, preeminent experts in certain areas, right? You can bring in either in, Nordstrom's case, a fashion designer, a makeup artist. You can even bring in like a YouTube influencer, a stylist expert, helping you, create a certain look, or or at least talking about kind of popular looks, and then having the merchandise around that. And it's a great way to scale. At a physical store, you bring, one expert to one store, and it's a great experience for the people that are in that store that day, but it doesn't really scale.
I mean, the applications for food, I mean,
Oh,
food retail, I would think would be enormous because there is so many educational opportunities and so many SKUs that you know, you could apply this to. I mean, it would seem to me that there's again, it's a huge opportunity.
absolutely. I mean, from center store out, right? I mean, center store, you think about, new products or product bundles or solutions, right? And education from either the creators of these products, or the brands of the manufacturers, or, celebrity spokespeople, or experts in those areas. I mean, that, from a packaged goods standpoint, it can actually bring some life to the center store. I mean, it's not quite, the end of aisle or in aisle sampling, but there's some real neat experience around that. And you think about it as you work into the fresh departments, and you might have a segment with a fishmonger, or with a butcher, or the nutritionist, or even the pharmacist, right? You have things around self-care, and just lots and lots of opportunities for the retailer to be that expert, to create that engagement, really valuable, information for the customer, and then be able to create that, every time you create one of those. And it's not high budget stuff. If you look at the Nordstrom stuff, yeah, there's some, stuff that's produced by the brands, and those are super high quality, but then it just cuts to, like a local spokesperson, a local host, running the show. So these are relatively inexpensive, and they're super valuable pieces of content that can stay out there and work for you.
Well, and I used the example when I followed up on the T-commerce story, and I've been waxing rhapsodic about the Stanley Tucci series about Italy and Italian food that's been on CNN. But again, this is a huge opportunity for these companies to, if you want to sell more Italian food, well, guess what? If you talk to people about all the
Absolutely.
different opportunities, or whatever kind of cuisine it happens to be. But then I guess I wonder, now Nordstrom is big enough to basically create its own channel. Does that mean retailers need to be creating their own channels? I mean, I guess Amazon already has one with Twitch,
Yeah.
but I mean, or does, I don't know. I mean, I could see Albertsons,
Right.
Kroger, or whoever creating their own live streaming channel, but should like IGA be creating a live streaming channel for all of its IGA stores around the country? I mean, is that, or should wholesalers be creating live streaming channels for all of their member retailers? I mean,
That's a great question. I mean, I think most retailers can afford to do this on their own. I mean, you just need a device that can capture video reasonably well. And we all know, even our phones and whatnot today, you can capture good 4K video on that, right? And that, so, I think the ability to capture is cheap. The ability to post it, store it, leverage it, it's all really cheap. So I think even as an independent, if you had the right kind of website and platform, you could do your own. I do think though, for a wholesaler, or somebody like an IGA, or I think that, yeah, I think that's a nice service that they could provide their customers and/or members. I think that would make a lot of sense. But I really think, as small as you are, these are pretty cheap, and it's your brand, right? It's part of how you touch your customers. So I think the more it can truly reflect who you are and how you want to engage with those customers. The more your own brand that it is, the better.
That's the Instacart argument right
You
there.
had that, yeah. God, why does it always end up there?
I don't know. It's probably me. Um, but okay, but then what is the advantage? Like, what is the advantage that Nordstrom sees in live streaming as opposed to just streaming?
It's an
Because
event.
yeah, but okay, it's an event, but is there an advantage in doing it? There's nobody, it's not like there's an audience, right? I mean, you and I are streaming this,
There's
right?
not a live audience. Well, there's not a live in-person audience.
Not a live in-person audience, but
Right.
and there's no interaction. So why is that? So that's it. In essence, this is an event, although it's an event we do every 2 weeks, right? We're recording it. Maybe that's a surprise to some people, but we are. Um, and so what is the marketing value? Is it just marketing value to say it's live streaming, as opposed to we sat down and we did a cooking lesson with our butcher about how to make grill a great steak. And
Well, I mean, I think you can do, place for those videos, right? Where it's the butcher, with a great, well-produced video, showing all the techniques and whatnot around preparing that steak. There's something about, though, like, when you have a live event coming up and you can kind of give it some hype,
right.
in advance, and you can kind of try to make it, must see TV, or a must attend event. You can just create this buzz. I think it creates some excitement, and then I do think there's a little bit of, I don't know if it's, not voyeurism, but like there's a chance it could go bad.
Oh yeah,
So I think people kind of want to,
live TV, absolutely.
so I think, oh, I want to see this, is exciting. I want to maybe be the first, or, I mean, especially in fashion trends and stuff, to be one of the first to see it. Like, that's kind of a big deal. And so I don't know. I think you can create some excitement around that. And I also think that there's just something about um, the rawness of something that's live that, even as you pre-record it, you might lose a little bit.
Right.
I mean, how many takes do we do on these things, to get it right?
One.
I know, but
There's live on. I always think of this as being live on tape. I mean, like with
right.
we do it as if it's live.
Yeah, and suppose they could certainly do that, and I'm sure they will, to some extent. Well, even like the Burberry one that I know I've mentioned that one a couple times, but that cut back and forth. So some of it was very produced. It was certainly very well orchestrated, and of course, it was produced live while it was being run. But I think there's something about that kind of spontaneity and rawness of live that gives it real character.
Yeah. I wonder also if we'll see some coalescing of all these different, because everybody's trying different things, right? You got Clubhouse, which is doing live audio, right? We've got Zoom, which is doing recorded video and that often not just for that, but we're using it for the purposes of streaming stuff. And then you've got, Amazon's got Twitch and oh, and by the way, I would bet that Amazon will use Twitch. I bet you they'll try to figure out ways to use that with their NFL, because now that they have those NFL Thursday night rights, the ability to combine that stuff and we're going to do a live thing with whoever.
Yeah. Powered by AWS.
Yeah, and so it'll be really interesting. And then Microsoft has got its own version. And I just wonder if we'll start to see some coalescing of, that Clubhouse will get into, well, they're doing it now as it is, except that it's not recorded. So maybe they'll record their audios and maybe or maybe add video to it. Maybe Zoom will. I just wonder if we'll start to see some of these companies, because they're all going to be looking for what are we going to do when COVID ends?
Right.
What's their strategy going to be? Because they're all these companies have really become relevant in a very specific laboratory. right?
Absolutely.
Suddenly that's going to end. So
Yes.
the most important question they can all answer is, well, what are we going to be doing in 2022?
Right. I mean, it's all about customer or user acquisition,
Right.
which has been a little easier for some of this during COVID because, well, we're home and we've got maybe a little bit more time, and it's a way for us to connect outside of our
Right.
outside of our bubbles, which is really important. Yeah. Then it's about engagement and retention,
Yeah.
and engagement and newness. That's cool, and we see it growing and all, but you got to be delivering a value proposition, right? Whether it's the spontaneity, the quality or depth of the content, or the frankness of the conversation, or if it comes over to video, then just the interactions that happen on video. I mean, I think all of these platforms are always going to be looking for ways to deliver new capabilities or new content or new kind of new programming and whatnot to retain those users, because there's only people times hours per day,
Right.
right? So while the market is growing, it is finite,
Right.
but it is early, and I think we're gonna have a little Wild West.
Well, and it's the same question though that basically, our audience, retailers, have to answer for themselves, which is, how are we going to be different in 2022? Because
Exactly.
2020 was something, 2021 is probably going to be transitional, but they better have a clear definition by using all these different technological tools and all their different
Yep.
marketing and merchandising tools of how they're going to be fundamentally different next year.
Exactly. How are you going to keep impressing your customers so they want to keep coming back to you?
But again, it gives us something to talk about every other week. So,
Oh yeah.
Tom, as always, thanks for doing the innovation conversation.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time.
So long, everyone.